Welcome in to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast, where we're back with another SEC transfer portal review. This one, we're going to be covering the defending national champion Florida Gators. Before we do so, if you've liked any of our other offseason content, our other transfer portal reviews, or if we like what you hear in this one, feel free to like and subscribe. I know we'd really appreciate the support. But as for the Gators, obviously lost a lot this offseason. Their whole backcourt got pretty much the whole front court coming back, right? So they had to reload at the guard position. I'll start with you, Cody. Who's your favorite transfer they pulled in? Obviously, pretty much down to two guys.
Yeah, and it feels like it's kind of 50-50 split with me. And they didn't have to do much in the front court, like you mentioned. I mean, it's going to be the best front court in the country, depth-wise and probably talent-wise as well. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of lineups they use with like Tommy Howe potentially playing the three. I'm not really sure how true that is. They didn't really play that many minutes together last year with Howe at the three. But for my best transfer, I kind of want to lean towards Boogie Fland. I think his efficiency numbers were worse than I think his actual talent level is and what he can actually provide. I think a lot of that poor efficiency came somewhat from the Coach Cal half-court offense. I think Todd Golden's going to put him in much better spots to succeed. I think he's a super talented dribble creator, much better shooter than I imagined he was going to be in year one. He was really good off the catch as well. So I think there's multiple roles that he can play within this offense. Struggled to score it at the rim, which was kind of to my surprise. I think his advantage creation and burst matched the eye test more than the numbers that I saw. I mean, it was a 6th percentile rim score, which it is a concern. And he was fairly weak finishing around the rim from what I saw in the tape. And there's obviously some shot diet concerns with him kind of living in the mid-range. I mean, he was a 98th percentile mid-range field goal attempt percentage guy. So, and I think Golden can kind of get that out of him and turn him more into like a 3-point shot creator. But him next to Xaivian Lee is going to create for two of the best playmakers in the entire country, two of the best dribble creators in the entire country. So it'll be interesting to see how those two work together. But at the end of the day, I think they find a way to make it work out.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like, I think Florida did about as good of a job as they could have in reloading the backcourt. Brought in two guys that are both very good passers, right? Both in the 30% in assist rate, both take care of the basketball at a high rate. I think the other thing with Boogie Fland, like, yes, I would expect some more efficiency, but I also think he's going to be very crucial to their defense, right? They lost Elijah Martin, they lost Will Richard, two of their their two backcourt defenders, right? And now bringing in Lee and Fland, like Lee, I think he's going to be great on the offensive end. I'm not quite sure defensively, how things are going to shake out in the SEC for him, but I think Boogie Fland, he had almost a 3% steal rate. I think he can be impactful on the ball, and quite honestly, he's going to have to be, because he's going to have to guard the other team's best perimeter player, their best guard, night in and night out. So a lot's going to be expected of him on the defensive end, and I think he is capable of providing, pretty good play there. At 6'2", he's got pretty good length and quickness, so I think he can be impactful there. As for Lee, like, I think he'll be able to score no problem still in the SEC. Like, he's a bigger guard, like 6'3", 6'4". He has good creativity getting to the lane, getting to the rim. Like I said, he's a great passer, takes care of the ball, efficient 3-point shooter. He's just like a high IQ player that I think is going to play really well in that like dribble handoff game. I think him and Tommy Howe could play very well together in like pick and roll, pick and pop situations, off those dribble handoffs. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. And like you said, with the lineups, what's Florida going to do? One interesting stat I did take away though from him, he's only a 26th percentile catch and shoot shooter. And he's actually 76th percentile off the dribble, which of all the players we've scouted this offseason, like that is complete opposite of everyone else.
Yeah, his off the bounce numbers are pretty ridiculous, honestly. I mean, he was a 41% 3-point shooter off the dribble, which is pretty insane. I mean, his step back 3-point jumper is his go-to, and he has a super quick release off the bounce. It's extremely tough to guard. I mean, he has burst, attacking a closeout, and defenders kind of have to honor that. So for him to be able to get to his 3-point shot and I mean, knock it down at a 41% clip off the dribble is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, off the catch, I mean, it was only 46 attempts off the catch, so it wasn't like a crazy volume. But for it to have a 26% 3-point clip, I mean, he was a super high usage guy in that offense, so it was probably foreign to him to have these open looks from three or just looks off the catch in general. But from what I did see, he didn't really look all that comfortable in catch and shoot situations. Another area that I am a little bit concerned about is his rim scoring. He was a 25th percentile rim scorer last year at Princeton. It's not really out of the ordinary for a guard, but it's definitely not a strength of his. I mean, he's kind of erratic around the rim and doesn't really seek contact all that often, which, if he's not able to get to the free throw line or create any sort of value around the rim, it'll make him a little more one-dimensional. I'm not saying he's a one-dimensional player. He's a fantastic passer, and he's a great dribble creator, like we mentioned. But there are some concerns when it comes to his 3-level scoring ability.
Yeah. I think one area, I touched a little bit on his defense, but I think one area where he probably can help is, like I said, he's a bigger guard. He's always been a good defensive rebounder. So I think that could be one area that he can provide value on the defensive end. Pretty much his last 2 seasons at Princeton, he's been over a 20% defensive rebound rate. So definitely can help there. And back to Fland and really for both guys, like you said, their dribble creation. Fland, I think, really has that like true burst, right? Where we didn't get to see a lot of it last year just because he missed a bunch of games, right? And when he came back, we don't really know, was he fully healthy, but he really has a burst that can get downhill and create opportunities for teammates, for guys like Lee, Tommy Howe, and dump offs to the bigs, right? And I think that's going to, obviously Florida's going to play, their bigs are going to be very crucial to what they do. Obviously they're going to be probably right back in the top 5 in the country, if not number 1 in offensive rebound rate as a team. So, even some of those inefficiencies that come with the guards, I think it is probably going to be just fine anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the talent level is just kind of take the pressure off of all of those things. It's going to mask the deficiencies that they have, the limited deficiencies that they have. I mean, I think they're just great players overall. I mean, another thing I noticed with Lee, I mean, not like a huge concern. It's just like, I mean, he gets caught in the air sometimes before he makes a real decision with the ball. He made some like lazy-ish one-handed passes, and he could kind of get away with that in the Ivy League playing against like a ton of passive defenses. So it's going to be a little bit different in the SEC. Maybe it takes a little bit of time for him to adjust, but I do think the pure scoring talent is going to allow him to be one of the top scorers in the SEC right away.
Yeah. No. So obviously, like, high expectations coming into this season, coming off a national championship. What are we expecting here with their additions? Another addition they made also, if you wanted to speak to, AJ Brown coming over from Ohio. Another 38% 3-point shooter. Pretty good at the rim too, over 60%. But if you want to touch on him and then kind of give some thoughts on what their outlook is.
Yeah, I think Brown is definitely going to have a role on both sides of the ball. I mean, I think he's more of a secondary action player. He's going to be a low usage 3-and-D piece. The shooting talent isn't necessarily like fantastic. His release is a little bit slow, but when he's open off the catch, he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be able to provide value there. he's going to be able to provide value on the defensive end as well. I mean, he's a bigger, more physical guard with longer arms that is going to be able to take on a lot of responsibility. And I think that's going to be really important for this team, especially if they play the 3-guard lineups, like when Haug is more at his natural position at the 4. And in general, I think that's kind of the concern with this roster that I mentioned at the beginning is like, who's going to play the 3 if the minutes with Haug at the 3 don't go very well. I think A.J. Brown's going to be one of those guys. I think C.J. Ingram, obviously the freshman 4-star coming in, kind of remains to be seen what he's going to be, but he could play a role on the defensive end, especially, when you're in the SEC and you're playing quicker guards, teams that are a little bit more versatile from the perimeter. But for their outlook this year, I mean, they're going to be just fine. I mean, just off the eye test, I think they're a top 5 team in the country right now. They're probably the best offensive rebounding team in the country. I mean, there's not many other teams that come to mind that can really compete with them. There's no more Buzz Williams at Texas A&M. I mean, they're probably going to be able to get on the glass a little bit, but Florida's always in the mix to be the best offensive rebounding team in the country. Then when you add in the, elite level shot making with Fland and Lee, it gives this offense just a really high floor and it gives them really high upside as well. A championship is obviously in the mix. I don't think this team is quite as good as they were last year, just because there are some concerns on the perimeter overall. I think the shooting outside of Fland and Lee, it kind of remains to be seen. And I think ball security, when one of those two has to go to the bench, I think is another concern, especially that's another thing when Haug's playing the 3. I think the ball security gets a little more iffy. But while Fland and Lee are on the court, they're going to be just fine. But yeah, I mean, this team for right now is definitely a top 5 team in the country for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just going to say to your point about Brown, that was really like my biggest concern. Obviously, the numbers say, really good shooter, which I think he is when he's open. But you're right, like that release is a little bit quirky, like it's a little bit slower, right? It takes so when he's open, I think he's, like you said, he's going to be able to provide value and make shots. But yeah, I think that this team is top 5 in the country right now. There's no real reason to think otherwise. My main concern for them, I think, comes on the defensive end. They're going to have that backline defense, but it's the perimeter group and the uncertainty there. What to expect, especially if like Fland's in foul trouble or they're going to have other guys step up. So they'll be fine. They'll be right at the top of the SEC. They'll be competing for a national championship again, I think. But like you said, I do think that they're just not quite as good as last year. Losing what they did, it's hard to say they're better than they are last year. It's hard to be better than a national championship team. The experience they had in the backcourt, the big play making from all of those guys. So, I still think obviously they're going to be really good and top of the country, but just not quite as good this year.
For sure. And I mean, to be honest, they kind of caught me by surprise last year. I had some concerns with them. I had a couple concerns. There was the point guard play, which I wasn't completely sure if Walter Clayton could be the point guard of a national championship team or a Final Four team. And, he proved me wrong. He did it in other ways, obviously. He did it a lot with his movement shooting. And, I mean, he's a true 3-level scorer as well. And the bigs kind of took the pressure off him, Condon and Haug as like DHO guys and playmakers a little bit. But I mean, and I just had concerns with the creation on the perimeter. Like I wasn't like the biggest Elijah Martin guy on the offensive end, but he proved me wrong. And his defense was another aspect. I mean, he was probably the best defender in the country at 6'3" or under. Like he was pretty incredible from what I saw. So yeah, I mean, this team's going to be fine. I mean, arguably the on-ball talent is a little bit better than last year's, but this team is going to have some things to work out early in the year on their own.
Yeah, definitely. But should be another fun season in Gainesville. That wraps it up. We'll see you next time on the Mainly Hoops podcast.